Let's go! If we could address you directly right now.
Everything comes full circle.
That's number one.
I don't tell him what questions to ask me.
There are a lot of people around town that have the same question.
Brush my teeth. I'm a good wash in the morning.
I can't confirm or deny.
You know, just keep going a little bit longer here, Mike. You keep going a little bit longer.
And radio. This is the Burdick Ford and Burdick Toyota pregame show.
Oh, that it is. Welcome in. Brian Higgins with you all here on this Saturday afternoon into evening. If you are going to the game right now, like, be safe out there. The roads, my goodness. Winter. We all remember how to deal with winter, right, Syracuse? Yeah, it is gross outside, but get there safely. Take some time hanging out with us. If you're not going to the Dome today because of the weather, get in the chat. We're on Cuse Sports Talk, CuseSportsTalk.com, the Cuse Sports Talk YouTube page, the Cuse Sports Talk Twitch page. If it says Cuse Sports Talk, that's us. We're talking about Syracuse sports. So go join us there. Get in the chat. We'll be hanging out here for the next hour or so pregame here in the chat and on the radio. We'll be back with you postgame. Alert for postgame. The Crunch are going to be coming up at 7 o'clock tonight. So our postgame show will be a Cuse Sports Talk, he said, exclusive presentation brought to you by our friends at Burdick. So come join us exclusively post-game for that on Cuse Sports Talk. We'll still be able to take your calls. We'll still be hanging out in the chat. We'll still get Red Autry's full post-game press conference, and we'll be hanging out, 8 to 9-ish, give or take, from whenever the game is over till about 9. If we factor in what happened a week ago on Saturday, triple overtime, 9 to 10, who's to say what we'll be doing? But we'll be here hanging out with you post-game coming up after the game. So an hour now, an hour later, the game's in between. Plan your Saturday evening accordingly. Game on ESPN today. Good to see that the matchup between number 1 in the country, Auburn, and number 2 in the country, Alabama, is just the mere appetizer before Syracuse and North Carolina today. Take that, SEC. Yeah. When you have the top 2 teams in the country playing each other. Yeah, you're just setting up Syracuse and North Carolina today. Of course, the Orange Radio broadcast on, as per usual, over on TK99 and on our AM signal right here on ESPN 1200. All of that said, here we are. If you'd like to join over the course of the next hour, you know the number, 315-437-7644. We'll look back at Tuesday's loss at Miami. Yes, we have to. Sorry. But it's part of the whole thing. We'll get you ready for Syracuse and North Carolina. We'll check in on Adrian Autry's weekly visit with Orange Nation from a couple of days ago, brought to you by our friends at Oswego County Mutual. Injury report, Donnie Freeman had his surgery yesterday. We'll get into that. We'll look at the all-time series, heavily tilted towards North Carolina of late, and we'll tell you what you need to know before the game here today, in which, neither team is feeling quite themselves, right? North Carolina, big, mighty North Carolina, national title contenders every year. North Carolina, ACC title contenders every year. North Carolina, number 1 seed like they were a year ago, contenders every year. North Carolina, yeah, the Heels are 14-11, 7-6 in the lead. Season ends today. They're not in the tournament. And we all know Syracuse's struggles, 11-14, 5-9 in the league. Season ends today, tomorrow, or basically any other day between now and whenever it's actually going to end. Syracuse is not in the tournament. So this is not quite to the same level as some of the previous Syracuse North Carolina games that we've seen over the course of the last decade, but here we go with it here today as we launch into that. A couple of updates from earlier today on the lacrosse field down in Maryland. The women won big. Great win for Kayla Traynor and crew. The men, men forgot their offense up in Syracuse, an 11-7 loss to the Terps earlier today, as heard on TK99. So a split day for the Lax teams. Women's hoops is still out in Cali. They take on Cal tomorrow afternoon after getting pretty well drubbed by Stanford the other night. And men's hoops looking to keep things on track here on this Saturday with a 6 o'clock tip-off against North Carolina. So we enter this game on the heels of the loss at Miami. And Miami's in last place in the league. Things were not good from Coral Gables on Tuesday night. 91-84. 81 was optimistic. 91-84 was the score on Tuesday evening from down in Miami. In a game that was close, it was back and forth the whole way, but Syracuse did trail down the stretch predominantly. And a game against a Miami team that, while they have talent, they've been a grease fire all year. They started 3-0. They had been, they were 5-18 going into the game. So they'd been on a 2-18 run over the previous 20 games, almost 3 months before Syracuse went down there and lost on Tuesday evening. In a game in which neither team played defense, and the Orange somehow played even less than Miami, which also sets up today against Carolina. Syracuse and North Carolina are two of the worst statistical defensive teams in the league. So we'll see how the form of today's game plays out compared to what we saw on Tuesday night, because you look at pure talent, Carolina's got more than Miami for sure, though something is amiss with North Carolina this year as opposed to, the North Carolina teams we're traditionally used to seeing. JJ had a game on Tuesday, 25 points, not enough. Eddie Lampkin had a big game on Tuesday. He'll have a chance to have a big game today, I think. He went 22, 13 boards, 6 assists in 34 minutes. North Carolina. What is one of the main things we know about North Carolina over the course of the last 30, 40, whatever? Pick an amount of years. Don't care. Yeah, they've had Jordan. They've had all these guys. This year they have R.J. Davis, the reigning ACC Player of the Year. North Carolina almost always has not just one big guy, but a lot of big dudes. Just like 6'10", 6'11 dudes just falling off a truck. They got tons of them. Normally. This year they don't. Armando Bacot had been there for 78 years. Finally, he has left and moved on after last year. This year they don't have that guy. They don't have a big dude in the middle. So can it be an Eddie Lampkin kind of day here for Syracuse? That's kind of where I'm going with this one. Yeah, they got guards. They got dudes. They're North Carolina. They're never lacking in talent. But can Eddie Lampkin have a big day, as he did on Tuesday against Miami? Similar to Carolina, they don't have any big guys, and Lampkin went to work. So we'll see if that can happen today. Chris Bell. What do we know of Chris Bell? Where are the winds blowing in regards to Chris Bell today? 14 points on Tuesday, 12 in the first half. The second half also occurred. And then, as far as Syracuse's defense, the Orange allowed career highs to 3 separate Miami players on Tuesday night. Matthew Cleveland had 32. Orange could not shut down their best player. Now, he's a big, small forward guard type. How does that play into tonight? Because North Carolina's best player is R.J. Davis. She's 6'1" on a tall day. A very different type of guard. I don't mean the position. I mean a different type of player to guard for Syracuse defensively than Cleveland was. But Syracuse struggled against Miami's best a few days ago. How will they handle Carolina's best? Davis, this year, not quite playing up to what Davis was last year, when he was the ACC Player of the Year. Scoring's off about 4 a game. His three-point shooting percentage is off about 10 percentage points. It's all just kind of off for North Carolina this year. So how's that all going to factor in as we roll throughout tonight's game today? And then we get to Adrian Autry. We'll hear what he sounded like on Thursday here in a moment. Here's what Red sounded like immediately after the game, and there is no other word than frustrated. And keep that in mind. We'll play back for you coming up shortly. Reds, a visit with Stephen Pauly on Orange Nation from a couple of days ago, in which, after evaluating the tape, thinking it over, slight adjustment of how Red went back and looked at the last game. But defense is always what Red talks about first. Always. it seems to be how he often determines who's going to be in the game, and we heard it there. He was not pleased at all. They gave up 91 points to Miami on Tuesday.
That tonight at all. All
right, yeah. So it's just an absolute mess for the defensive end, and the guy they couldn't guard was the guy they knew they needed to guard, and that was Miami's Matthew Cleveland.
He's a guy, he's a veteran that's been in this league for a while, and obviously, he has a lot of experience. He's been playing well. Today I just thought it was just too easy for him. I just thought he got whatever he wanted, anytime he wanted, and we've played against some other good players, and we've made them work a little bit more. I just didn't think we made him work at all today. I thought he did what he wanted to do today.
Yeah, that he did, to the tune of 32 points. And here's something where I think we need to look at this. Is we don't want a lot of carryover from Tuesday night, right? There wasn't a lot of good coming out of Tuesday. Yeah, they scored, but you don't want to play the same way. You're going to lose. But Eddie Lampkin at the offensive end on Tuesday seems to be something based on roster construction, based on what Carolina is this year, based on the fact they don't have any big dudes. Lampkin had a big day on Tuesday. Maybe he has another one today.
Eddie gave us, Eddie plays hard. He gave us, he was good. I thought we, could have got it in there a little bit more, but for some reason we couldn't make the passes in there. But I thought he was aggressive. I thought, Eddie plays hard. That's the one thing he does. Every game he brings it. I think, he's, these last, 6 or 7 games, he's really, he's brung it every game.
That he has. He's had a run of double-doubles here. It seems night and day. You go back to the beginning of the season, chicken and the egg conditioning is back. I don't know. But he was clearly bothered by the back for the first month of the season. It seems clearly now he's not. He's not standing on the bench every time he's out of the game because he doesn't want to sit down. He's not having to ride the bike to stay loose all the time. He just, eye test, looks more nimble. He's never exactly going to be an explosive vertical athlete. But I at least think now we're seeing the guy that Red and the coaching staff thought they were getting for that NIL price tag that they paid back in the spring. But for Red and for this team, everything this week, it all went back to the other end of the court on defense.
You need 5 guys to play defense. If one guy doesn't do his job, then the defense breaks down, right? And if we get to if they make a missed shot, we got to get the rebound, right? We give certain people certain instructions, certain things to do, and we got to be able to execute those. And typically, we've had some performances where we come up on the short end, but we kind of live with the game plan. Today we just didn't do what we were supposed to do today. That's just frustrating.
Frustrating was the word of the day on Tuesday night. That is for sure for Syracuse down in Coral Gables. What was a 91-84 loss to North Carolina. North Carolina, frustrating has been one of the words for their season as well. They went to Clemson on Big Monday and just got ripped apart. Lost by 20, wasn't close for 1 second, got blown out on Monday. And that's been the case really for Carolina against legit teams all year. I mean, they played Duke a week ago and got annihilated. Absolutely annihilated. Or 2 weeks ago now. They were down huge. Final score was only 17. It wasn't that close. Not even remotely. I say final score in a rivalry game only 17. That tells you a lot about Duke or about North Carolina. So they are struggling. For their standard, Syracuse is certainly struggling by any standard, and that matchup will tip off in the Dome just past 6 o'clock tonight. ESPN for the TV, TK99, of course, for the radio. With that, we'll take a break. If you'd like to join us on pregame, you may. 315-437-7644. We'll check in on Red's visit with Stephen Pauly from Orange Nation earlier this week. We'll look back at the recent history of the series. We'll get you all set for Cuse and Carolina, all as we roll along in our Burdick pregame coverage here on Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Oh, chat, what is up? What is up? Somewhat, Kev. Yeah, I blame Paulie for all audio errors earlier. It's all Paulie's fault. Oh, germs everywhere, Florida guy. They are swirling around me. Yeah, Patty, he's an aerial acrobat now, is Lampkin. Yes, Zach. Crunch will be on the radio. Post-game, a Cuse Sports Talk exclusive presented by our friends at Lipton and Labatt and Burdick. But we'll be here. We will be here for postgame. And I think I've hit all the buttons right, so the crunch can be on the radio. Yeah, it is gross, Alcavendo. Go back to Florida. What are you doing here? I'll be with you postgame, Pat. Well, Florida guy, we're usually also on the radio. The radio is unavailable to us this evening because of the crunch. Yeah, I saw that headline earlier today, Kev. That's, like, what? How's that even possible? It was four-wheel drive, steady grip on the wheel on the way here. It was gross out. We are on ESPN Radio 97.7 here in the Cuse, Florida guy. And you, out-of-state people, get to enjoy us due to the wonders of modern technology. Over, Pat. Over. I just take over. Whatever you set the line, I'm taking over. Because it is disgusting. Ooh, Auburn a little run before the half here. Whew, I almost wiped out my driveway yesterday. A little piece of ice getting the mail almost took me out. All my years of skills and balancing saved me. I said, at least we're used to bad weather, Pat. The product on the court's supposed to save us from the bad weather.
Ford and Burdick Toyota pregame show.
That it is. Welcome back. Brian Higgins with you. We are 40-ish minutes away from opening tip today inside the Dome. If you are headed to the Dome, slow and steady wins the race today, people. My goodness, it is disgusting out there. I imagine that is going to hamper attendance, which is too bad. This is, you look at there's only 2 Saturday home games left. We know the season has been what it's been. Not great. You got Carolina today and Virginia to wrap up the season on March 8th. Normally, those would be, in many years, excellent Saturday home games. except Carolina's down. Syracuse is very down. The weather's terrible outside right now. And then, Cuse in Virginia, it could be battling to see who's like the 14th seed in the ACC tournament coming up in a few weeks. So the shine is off what were to be, in theory, two of the biggest games on the schedule when you look at Saturday games and primetime spots. 6 o'clock tonight. The Virginia game in a few weeks is 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. So the hype off just a little bit. As Syracuse will be on ESPN, there's no way the Orange are starting on ESPN on time. So look to see what TV channel the game actually starts on, because they just went to halftime, like just now. It's 5:20. Syracuse game starts at 6. They just went to halftime of Auburn, Alabama on ESPN. There is a 0.0000000% chance that the Orange game actually starts on time on ESPN. The good news is this is not the CW, so there are plenty of channels and streaming and whatnot to get the game started on time. The question is, when will they pop it on the screen so we can all be nimble with our remote controls? Of course, on the radio, it will be available to you on TK99 and ESPN 1200 as per usual. So there we are on that. Yeah, I'm just doing a little math here. Carry the one. I don't know how much of the first half is going to make it on ESPN proper. Second half of this Auburn-Alabama game is not going to start for... They just went to halftime a couple minutes ago. I mean, the second half's not going to start till after 5:30. I mean, close game, number one. Yeah, I mean, this game's not going to be over until darn near 6:30. Yeah, this is... how the heck the first half take that long? They are behind schedule on ESPN. Neither here nor there. We play on regardless, and we'll get through it all. We'll get through it all together. We'll try to relay the information of what channel you need. Hopefully, it'll be popping up before we're off the air here today. But right now, let's check in on Red Autry earlier this week. We heard from him a few moments ago the evident post-game frustration in the immediate aftermath on Tuesday night. I don't want to say that it had been diminished by Thursday. It had certainly been recalibrated a little bit. Red, watch it on Q Sports Talk. Red, I don't know if he had slept. He looked beyond exhausted. But his weekly chat with Stephen Pauly is presented by Oswego County Mutual. Here we go.
Coach, before we get into North Carolina and looking ahead, let's look back at the Miami game. And I know that you were very frustrated afterwards about the defensive effort. And you used that term multiple times on Tuesday night, that the effort wasn't there. And I guess the question that everybody has been asking us, and we'll ask you, is how does that happen in terms of knowing how important that game was? And as you guys, try to build some momentum going to the ACC tournament, what happened defensively on Tuesday night?
I just thought... we just didn't. They moved the ball a little bit more quicker than we wanted. We wanted to be able to kind of make a better defensive adjustment with their best players. Obviously. They're a talented roster. And I think obviously after the game, you're heated, but when you kind of take a step back, obviously Miami is a team that, their record does not indicate, how much talent they actually really have. And Cleveland, he's been a handful. And, for the last 5 or 6 games, he's really been on a tear. I just thought that we could, do a better job of kind of bottling it up, and we didn't. And I was frustrating. I think to be able to let, Bethea, who had been, he's very talented, talented kid, someone, that was looked at as a one and done, to be able to, those two guys to have the night that they had, that was the frustrating part, because I just thought we prepared so much during the week. I just thought our defense, in those situations where we were prepared to kind of to be able to give them more resistance, and we didn't.
Coach, and I know you just said that it was because you were frustrated after the game, but how do you get the guys to buy in on defense? Is it possible, or is it just something that they've got to do on their own?
No, I think again, I don't think they don't want to play defense. Defense is something that you gotta be focused at all times. I think, like most teams, and you talk to most coaches, besides the top defenses, like you can't let the other end of the court impact that end of the court, and that's the challenge for every coach, every player. When your offense is not going, or your offense is not going as well as you would like, which that wasn't the case that game because we scored, enough points. We just couldn't defend and stop anybody.
I do want to touch on the BC game if we could, Coach. And I know that we spent a lot of time in the days after the BC game about that last play of regulation. And I know you addressed it after the game. You addressed it again on Monday, but for the purposes of our show and our listeners, can you walk through what's going on in those timeouts? 4 or 5 seconds left, up by 3 at the end of regulation. What's being talked about in the timeout, and then what transpired on that play that allowed BC to tie the game?
I'll answer this question, and it's a very simple. Everyone knows. The referees know, everyone knows in the building what we're trying to do, all right? And I'm not trying to throw any of my players under the bus or anything like that, all right? But the scenario was we're going to give a foul, all right? For the play itself, one of our guys were way back in drop, or for whatever the case may be. That's not what was supposed to be happen, but it happened, and we got to move on. And again, the play was the foul. We didn't foul. They made the shot. Again, you can see that in a ton of games. So again, we were supposed to do that. The referee knew it. Everyone knew it. And our players, were instructed to do that. Again, it was 5 defenses about everybody being on the same page, 5 guys being on the same page. One guy wasn't on the same page, and that's what happened.
And along those lines, you said, you got to forget about it and move on, and you go into, overtime, and then double overtime, you're dead and buried. You're down by 7. It seems like the game's over in double overtime, and, you guys dug deep and found a way to come back. I guess, can you speak to that? Because, we talk about the effort or lack thereof on Tuesday, but it's not like these guys have given up, because on Saturday we saw them come back from 7 down in double overtime to win it in triple overtime. Can you, I guess, speak to what allowed you guys to come back to win that game in the end?
Let's give Miami some credit. They have a talented roster. All right. My expectations for my players, I don't care who we play against, Duke, Cooper, Flagler, I know how talented they are, but I expect my guys to go out and compete and fight. All right. And if we don't get the job done, I'm frustrated and I'm going to challenge them. I'm not going to lower my standard and my abilities of my players. All right. So again, I'll probably have to do a better job of that. But it's not lack of effort. Our guys are trying. Our guys are in here. They do what we ask. All right. Do they execute it? Do they execute it every time? No. But those guys are resilient. They're not quitting. These guys come in and practice every day. They got a great spirit about them. This is a hard league. At the end of the day, we haven't had a chance to play with our whole roster full this whole year. But these guys, that doesn't mean anything. That happens in everything, and we are preparing, and these guys are working hard. When things don't turn out your way, it's easy to, like I tell you, it's easy to be negative. It's easy to get ridiculed. It's easy to get picked apart. If you win a couple of these games, you change it around, the whole scenario is different. I think the biggest thing is that, these guys are trying. They're competing. There is no quit in these guys. To answer your question, there's no quit in these guys. They come in with the same spirit. I would wish that, people can support this team and rally around this team because they are giving their best, and there's not lack of effort at all.
With that being said, Coach, could maybe a Miami game, did that wake them up maybe a little more than something else happening? I know you keep saying that they have a good roster and everything, but does that maybe make them realize when you lose to a Miami in that situation that, hey, we've got to be better?
Well, I think this. If you look at all the games that Miami played, right, they had games they should have won, and they didn't win. All right? And obviously, you look at the record, and perception is, hey, this is not a good team. That's a good team. That's a very talented team. All right, they've had a lot of stuff go on, and again, all of those games that you look at, they haven't been blown out a lot. They've lost, but they've competed for the most part. A couple of games just didn't go their way, and that can happen to anybody. So again, I don't think that they woke up. I mean, they went out, they competed. I mean, we scored, we competed, we scored. We just didn't do a good job of stopping them. So it's not that, they need to be woke up. I mean, these guys are still battling.
This is our first chance to talk to you, Coach, since the Donnie Freeman news was made official. First chance on this show, anyway, to talk to you. And maybe this question is premature, but do you have a feel at this moment, and things can change, I know, after the season, do you have a feel as to whether or not we'll see him in orange again next year? Have those conversations happened yet? Is that something that you have a feel for now, one way or the other, what what he's planning for the future?
We haven't had those conversations. Obviously, we have a great relationship. I've recruited and known Donnie since he was in 9th grade. And we're going to do whatever we think is best for him. And we'll be involved in those conversations. But right now we just want to make sure he gets healthy, get better, and move forward, and then we'll kind of go from there.
All right, that's fair. Go ahead, Paulie.
Coming up, you got another team that is very talented, but the record doesn't show it. Coach, how do you get ready for North Carolina?
Well, North Carolina, again, you look at their games, and obviously they lost, but they've been down and they've battled back in pretty much every game. Obviously they're fast. They're a little smaller than they have been in the past, but they still are tough. They get after it. They push the ball. They like to score. They like to get up and down. They pressure defensively. So, we will have to be able to, like anything, be able to, play our game and protect the basketball and continue to rebound, like we have been this year. I think that'll, we have to continue to do that. But again, North Carolina, very good team. The record is not an indication of how good they really are. Again, they've lost a ton of close games. And if you look at our league has been like that. Guys have just lost a ton of close games. But North Carolina is obviously, they're still playing for a lot. They'll come in here, very motivated. We got to be ready.
And I guess last question from me, Red, you look at, even despite that loss on Tuesday, you guys are still in very good shape to make the ACC tournament. And the standings are so bunched up that, it's quite possible and quite realistic to not even have to play on that first day if you guys were able to get hot. Is that kind of the goal right now, to finish with an 8 or 9 seed, or improve the seed as much as possible, or are you not even thinking that, and you're just is it literally just one game at a time at this point?
With this is one game at a time. Every game is challenging for us. I can't get ahead. I can't think that far ahead, and I'm sure our guys can't. They probably do a little bit more than I do. This is a game by game. North Carolina's the next game on the schedule. Let's prepare and do the best that we can and try to win that game, and then we move on to the next game. So I don't get that far ahead. It's really game by game and week by week, and I'm just really focusing on us getting better, continually get better. Like I told our guys, and I've said this multiple occasions, and I got it from Cal Cuff again early in the year. You got your non-conference, you got your conference, and then you have your postseason. All right, so we're finishing up our our conference play, and we're going to finish up our conference play, giving it all we have, and then get ready for postseason, and that's, the tournament, and that's the expectations, and that's how we think. We're not thinking about not making a tournament, anything like that. We're thinking about winning the next game.
One last one for you, Coach, and that's I just want you to, there's a misconception, I think anyways, and maybe you can clear it up for me, about Eddie Lampkin. Was he out of shape when he got in, or was he hurt when he got in? Maybe you could explain to that. And what is, he looks like a totally different player now.
Eddie, when Eddie came in the summertime, he had really got himself kind of into the shape that he's in now. And then he has some issues, he has some issues with his back, and, he's doing a lot, he's done a lot to get back, to get his conditioning back, to get his bounce back. And he's been great. He's moving great. He hasn't had any issues, but he's puts a lot of work in. His day is filled, taking care of himself. And not that he wasn't doing that before, but, he has some struggles early. And, again, he's a guy that comes in and he doesn't miss practice. He doesn't do anything like that, and, we had to monitor. He had to put some extra work in, and he's done that. And there's a lot of credit to him and my medical staff and everyone, around, telling him these are the things that he needs to do to get to be able to help us. And all he wants to do is help us win. And he's done a phenomenal job of up to this point.
Red Autry visiting with Stephen Pauly on Orange Nation every Thursday at 1 o'clock for the remainder of the season, brought to you by Oswego County Mutual, as we welcome you back in here to our pregame coverage from Burdick today. Again, safe on the roads out there. It is, something going on out there, man. This winter has wintered in a way that we have not in the Cuse in quite some time here. So slow and steady, people. Dome's not going anywhere. You'll get there. The second half just started on ESPN in this Auburn-Alabama game, 1 versus 2, that is airing on TV before the Cuse-Carolina game. That shouldn't really legit delay the start of Cuse-Carolina much, if at all, but it will certainly alter the channel on television the beginning of the game is on. So we'll keep you apprised of that when that information becomes available to us, if it does, before our pregame coverage ends today. Well, that will step aside for a few. Much more to come. You can chime in if you'd like. 315-437-7644 is the phone number. You guys know that. Never changes. We're back after this. A look at the recent history of the Cuse-Carolina series. We'll do that next year on Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
This
Oh, man. Yeah, how gross is it going to be by the end of postgame? Looks like it's just going to stay a steady level of gross. Yeah, tomorrow morning looks just like sludgy. Temperature's going to get up to, honestly, it'll probably be more gross tomorrow when it's 36 out than it is right now. Oh, phones are ringing. Yeah, Duke's really good. What is going on in the Atlantic Coast Conference today? Oh, Cal and Georgia Tech in a tight tussle. Clemson beats the crap out of Florida State. Pittsburgh was down early in that game. They rallied back and beat Miami. Virginia with a win over Virginia Tech. Right. NC State has won a game. Okay. All right. NC State beating BC is slightly disconcerting. I don't think Syracuse is going to miss the ACC tournament, but NC State getting a game closer to Syracuse with still having to play Cuse is Yeah, neither Cal or Georgia Tech are good. God, this league's a mess. It legit could be LA Orange. If you win the game, you avoid that, but... Yeah, Miami's got 2. BC's got 2, and now NC State has 3. Oh, it sucks that we have to talk about the bottom of the league standings, but yet here we are. Opt out of the ACC tourney, Coach 5D? No. Why? The spread of the Duke, which Duke game? Today's Duke game? I'm not sure. I mean, what's the difference between that one game and the other games? You can't officially enter the portal yet then. In what way, Waka Waka? Like, sure, and that you like him to improve. Like, for anyone that thinks he's going to get fired, no. Like, he's not getting fired if he loses today, Waka Waka. All right, let's get some calls in here. 315-437-7644. We'll go somewhere it's probably not snowing. We'll check in with Al down in Kentucky. Hey, Al, what's up?
Yeah, I'd like to talk a couple of things about the team that confuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Red was talking about the end of the BC game, and yes, we didn't make the play we were supposed to make. But on his end, why was our worst three-point defender even on the floor in that sequence?
I assume you're talking about Lampkin? Yeah, that's the one.
No, Carlos. Carlos is the worst three-point defender I've ever seen, okay? He can't keep anybody out of the lane. Even if he gets to them, they shoot over him. Yet he was on the floor at the end of that game, and Taylor was on the bench. And that's the second time that's happened in the last 3 or 4 games. They also look at Carlos. When he's on the floor getting 20, 25 minutes, it's like 5-on-4. It's nothing against him, but he's just not an ACC-level guard at his size. 5'9", he can't keep people out of the lane. He can't defend a three. He's not particularly quick. He dribbles away the first 10 or 12 seconds of every offensive possession, and yet it took Red 10 games to figure out that he was not a quality point guard. Instead, he puts Bell on the bench because Bell's having trouble. Well, Bell's having trouble because he doesn't have a decent point guard that can find him early. We're not playing inside out through Lampkin, so he's not really seeing the ball that much. And so you've got one of the best three-point shooters sitting on the bench, not starting, and you've got a high-level recruit that any team in the ACC would want, Elijah Moore, sitting on the bench, while a player that very few, if any, teams in the ACC would want are getting 25 minutes. These are things that I don't understand, and it hasn't changed as the year has gone on. It's like they want Moore and Bell to transfer. I mean, Bell's not a great defender, but nobody on that team defends. But every time he strokes the ball, you think it's going to go in. Every time Taylor strokes the ball, you're kind of surprised when it goes in. So I just don't see the use of personnel. Bell would flourish if he if JJ continued to be the primary ball handler. They went through Lampkin, and you had Moore and some other shooter on the floor to spread the floor a little bit. This has gone on all year.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I think we go back. I mean, we've talked about it a million times. To go back to when Jaquan was taken out of the lineup originally, I mean, I think they were going to make that move before the Tennessee game, and that's when JJ got hurt, so it kind of threw things off. And, Chris Bell's a really good shooter when conditions are optimal. We've seen now in almost 3 years that when conditions are not optimal, what else is he bringing? So, yeah, the roster's a mess. It's a mess, Al, and it's not worked out. It's not worked out as they've wanted. I think we're at the point, though, where there's not any combination of five that's really going to work.
So then why not play more? All right, you pull him because he does something stupid. Talk to him for a couple minutes. Put him back in. Instead, Carlos, who's not going to be here next year, is not a good defender. And like in the first half of the BC game, he was awful, okay? Yet he comes in the second half and plays all 3 overtime segments, and Moore doesn't even get back in the game. I don't understand his personnel decisions. I don't understand any of them. If a point guard, even if it's Sterling, comes down and doesn't throw the ball into Lampkin, pull him out of the game, talk to him for a few seconds, then put him back in, and let him and impose your will as the coach. Okay, that doesn't happen on this team.
Yeah, I'm also the Chapa stuff. His defense has been terrible. Admittedly, it's not for a lack of effort. It's just for I don't know what he's been terrible on defense. But yeah, I would love to see it. Yeah, I would love.
I'm not going to argue he's not a good defender, but Carlos is no better. He's a horrible defender. He can't keep people out of the lane, and he's short, so he can't. They shoot over him. So at least put the young kid in who has a future with the team, and hopefully won't transfer.
Yeah, I think that I would agree with you on Chapa. I'd like to see him more. Thank you for the call, Al. That it's one where I don't know. Like we've seen, it doesn't really matter who the combinations have been this year, right? The defense has been a mess almost all season long, regardless of who the five are. It's just kind of what it is right now, and. I don't know. I think Red, stuff he can improve going forward. I think being aware of on-court combinations, substitution patterns, stuff like that, I think that is extremely high on the list of things that, in-game coaching that needs to be improved. All right, let's bring on Pat. What's up, Pat? You there, Pat? Did I hit the button? Are you there now, Pat?
Yep.
Oh,
There's the button.
There's the button. I need to hit the button, Pat. It's just, you miss one show and you forget where the buttons do. All right, what's up, man?
Yeah, so sounds like you might need some hot and sour soup, a couple more rounds of that, and then I think you'll kick this cold. But you were definitely missed. What I want to commend you on is you do a good job of balancing the emotions and the frustrations of the fans, or at least most of the fans that aren't drinking orange Kool-Aid and singing Kumbaya or whatever the heck they're doing. But the reality is, there was a Cuse chat on Twitter on the Spaces platform, and it was so insightful, and it basically led me to this. Okay, the rest of the year, everybody knows there's not much to even look at. I agree with Al in almost everything he said. I mean, everything he said. Yeah, Carlos is gone. Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, Chapa's not. So that's one reason. I could give you 12 other reasons why Chapa should be playing probably 20 to 25 minutes. I don't think he's a 30-minute guy, but I think Carlos is a 10-minute guy. And it's kind of funny to me that most of these guys, they've had each player on the team has had games where they're arguably one of the best players on the floor, and then another game where they're on the bench, and you don't care if they ever come off ever again. I mean, I can name 6 guys right now that most of the fan base would agree at some point in the season that's the way you felt about Bell, about Cuff, about Carlos, about Moore, about really the one player who's really been bad and he tries really hard and he seems to be smart, but yet he hasn't figured out all year how not to foul is Peter.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't believe his game hasn't translated a little bit on this level. And I think it all comes down to coaching. I really believe that the coach's main role, besides the roster construction and all that, and everybody's just basically saying, well, we just struck out in the portal. You still take the team that you have, okay, and you figure out how to maximize each of their talents. That's what a coach does. And he's not doing that. He's not capable of doing it, and he won't do it. I mean, it infuriates me to no end that a guy will be playing well. He'll take him out, which is no problem, and then he forgets about him. But then, so he's making substitutions at a normal level, but they're just confusing everybody involved. And if it's confusing the fans, chances are it's confusing the team as well. These guys don't know what they're expecting. There's no system. There's no expectation. It's absolutely horrific. And the last thing I'll say, Brian, Boeheim used to do something great pregame. He would be playing a 5-20 Colgate team, and he would say they're a good team. And that was for his team. He was doing that so they didn't take a night off. Did it always work? Probably not. But that's why he did it, and that's why I never got annoyed that he was saying this team's good, that team's good. After the game, for for Coach to say on multiple platforms that Miami's a good team is a freaking embarrassment. He should be ashamed of himself. They're one of the worst Power 5 teams, and their metrics are one of the worst in the history of that program. So for him to say that's a good team shows me that he's not setting the bar high enough, and he's not going to be replaced. But next year is going to be fun because I've watched a lot of film on Sadiq. He is an athletic freak. I don't know if we run stuff that can get him his own offense because he can't get his own. And I'm concerned that Anthony just needs to bulk up a little bit like Carmelo did from high school to college. I don't think he's going to do it quite as much as his dad, but he needs to put on 10 or 15. And this could be a fun team next year. But, Brian, tonight I'm going to be looking at exactly what Coach read, his body language, what he's doing all night because I'm sick of watching what's on the floor. So I might as well watch what's on the sidelines.
There you go, Pat. All right, Pat, thank you. I'm sure we'll talk post-game. There's our guy, Pat. It's with Red, honestly, I think one of the biggest things that Reds needs to improve with his in-game coaching is the substitutions and stuff. I feel sometimes it gets a little lost there of rotations they were going for. I'd agree with that completely. And then, okay, you now 5 minutes has gone by, and you're like, oh, crap, I should have put that guy back in. Is that a Red? Is it an assistance? Like, that stuff needs to be really hammered out. All right, let's get our final break in. Come back, final thoughts before Cuse and Carolina tonight in the Dome. We're back next. Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Yeah, the Reds rotations and stuff, that is not been good. It's not been good. Oh, what are they going to put up on the TV screen? What channel our game's starting? LAR, it's just that they're not firing him this year. So to argue that point, I find foolish. I'd say the one thing I can tell is this team hasn't, turned on Red. This team, the season's not been good. The team hasn't turned on him. What does that mean? I don't know. No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I'm not against that, Waka Waka, but I don't think they're going to fire him. They're still understaffed based on some other teams. Is that in the budget? I don't know. A live firing. I just don't think it's going to affect it one way or another, Kenny. A live firing right here on Cuse Sports Talk. Here's my main thought, and this has not changed based on anything. If you're hiring Red Autry to replace Jim Boeheim, which they did, a guy who has zero head coaching experience, you have to understand that there will be some bumps in the road, and you have to give him a little time, even if it doesn't look right. That doesn't actually mean it's going to get better, though. Like next year, you get Cayenne and Sadiq, you hit the portal. They all seem to think they'll have a little more money to play with in NIL. I don't know. If next year looks like this year, you've removed a lot of the variables from understanding what's wrong. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, Waka Waka. So because there's pressure on the third year, you fire him after the second year? That just, what? Maybe they can't, Kenny. Maybe next year sucks, and then they'll all get fired. Like, if they suck next year, they're all getting fired. Syracuse is not a fire people after 2 years school. Didn't fire G-Rob after 2 years. Like, the evidence was pretty clear that Greg Robinson didn't have a damn clue after about half a season. I think the Carmelo Bayham commercial's all right. I was amused. But yeah, let's all remember, like, Greg Robinson was here for 4 years. 4. Yes, Weitzman will solve all of this. Don't you try me, Alpha Big Guy.
This is the Burdick Ford and Burdick Toyota pregame show.
All right, last few minutes with you here on pregame today. Remember, postgame will be a Cuse Sports Talk exclusive. YouTube, Twitch. The Crunch will be on the radio, so you know where to find us. CuseSportsTalk.com. Chat, phone calls, Reds postgame presser, all that available to you after the game. What channel on TV will the game start on? I don't know, but this Auburn-Alabama game is nowhere near over. Quickly, this day in SU basketball history brought to you by Shep Family Funeral Home. Celebrate your loved one with help from Shep. Visit shepfamily.com. All-time series is 17-7 in favor of North Carolina. Most of that margin has come recently, a.k.a. the last decade plus in ACC play. Carolina has won 13 of the 17 meetings as ACC foes. Last year was 2 shocking scores. Syracuse went down to Chapel Hill on January 13th and got blitzed out of the building. That game started, that game was over. 103-67. The Orange were down by 20 in less than 13 minutes. Never had a chance. Got drummed off the court. 1 month after that, February 13th here in the Dome, we all just kind of assumed the same thing was going to happen, yet Judah and JJ both had big games. 25 for Mintz, 23 for Starling, and the Orange won by 7 in the Dome. That was a shocking win last year, all things considered. Harding and Mazzani injury report. We know Donnie Freeman is out for the year. Can officially tell you now he had his surgery yesterday, so wishing the best for Donnie in his recovery. And now we will wait and see if we ever see him in an orange uniform again. As far as what to expect today, this is all offense, no defense kind of game. Both teams really struggle on defense. 2 of the worst teams in the league by any defensive metrics. I think it's going to be close. I think Lampkin's got a chance to do some stuff inside today. Who's going to guard R.J. Davis? He struggled against bigger defenders. How do you alternate that? Do you put a Starling or a Lucas Taylor on him? Carlos doesn't feel like the right kind of guy to guard him. How do you make those moves here today? All said, I think it's close. I think North Carolina, even without their inside presence, though, maybe a little bit too much on the offensive end. High-scoring game today. I'm feeling like Carolina 83, Syracuse 79, Orange cover. They are 8.5-point dogs, but come up just short. We'll see if we're in the ballpark when we come up later on. Still don't know what channel the game's going to start on television, but no way it starts live on ESPN. You can switch over to TK99 now if you want to catch it all live on the radio with Matt, Sets, and Paulie hanging out in the Dome. I'll be with you post-game, CuseSportsTalk.com, exclusively. Your calls, your chat, Adrian Autry, full post-game press coverage. Talk to you all in about 2 hours there on Cuse Sports Talk as we sign off here on ESPN Radio.
Hey, this is Formula